Hello, hello. This is Kristina, your host today. And today is a new episode of KSM podcast, Doing Business Online with Kristina. And I'm so excited today and super honored to have my special guest speaker far away from USA, Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen, welcome to the new episode of KSM podcast.
Great. Yeah. From the USA, I'm in San Francisco Bay Area on the West Coast, and it's bright and sunny California weather here today.
Yeah, that's lovely. And Doctor, tell us a little bit about you, just like who you are, what you do. As you mentioned, you're so far away from me.
Mhm.
I'm on east side of Europe, Southeast Europe, in Serbia. You are so far away, and we're 9 hours ahead. I'm 9 hours ahead of you. So here is a evening, not too much late. For you is mid of the day. So yeah, it's very exciting to be in this way to technological part and communicate in this way.
Yeah, I think that the internet gives us an opportunity to connect and not only just say hello, but to actually exchange ideas and also learn about each other. And when we learn about each other and the listeners get to also learn something just by us telling our stories.
Yeah, and where I when I talk with many of my guest speakers, we all have our stories, and we are all different, and we are all unique. So, uh, dear Dr. Doreen, share with us a little bit about you.
Well, let's see, I'm a psychologist. I've been doing that kind of deep inner work with people for about 40 years. And I would say that partly the reason I chose psychology was not only because I'm fascinated by humans and behavior, and I just wanted to learn more about what goes on inside of us. I see that the world outside, look at space, look at the universe, how vast that is. And I believe that we are that vast inside of ourselves. So in a way, I've never thought of this. They have astronauts. I'm kind of somebody who likes to go on journeys inside of myself and people and take people on that inner journey so that they can learn more about themselves, become more aware, and to tap into, and my work is about learning how to tap into the self that then expresses. So that's why I call it find your voice. But you have to find yourself before you have a voice.
Yeah, and yeah, this is so true. As you mentioned, I'm not too much like to study psychology and be psychologist, but I really wanted to know more about inside of us. But and do you think that we really know ourselves?
I think that it's possible. I think that it's a choice because there there are lots of roadblocks and there's just so much distraction, especially nowadays with this online work that is capturing our attention. There's just so many ways in which we don't pay attention to ourselves. And I think that's my message is that if you want a better life, you need to look inside of yourself, not go out searching, grabbing, distracting yourself. So I would say psychologically, I think we'll have healthier lives mentally, emotionally, spiritually, if we have the courage and some skills about how to increase our self-awareness.
Oh, this is lovely. And you mentioned just like imagine 40 years of your career, your background. And I cannot imagine how many people did you serve, and you served them. And heal them. And can you share with us about, let's say, about your like starting points when you in starting ages of your career, like how it was in that time? Just because I always wanted to ask my guest speakers about a little bit about, you mentioned 40 years of your career, but also how it was your start, and who were people who do you who you did healing that time, mostly who do you work with, or
Uh-huh. I would say, since we're talking about starting a business and why I even chose that, I I feel like there's always been an entrepreneur spirit inside of me, kind of somebody who might lead others as opposed to fit into a position, a job. So that, let's see, to go back to the beginning of when I started my business, it had to be before that because I had to train first. And I would say that I was already thinking about working with people somehow, whether it was social work, whether it was counseling, whether it was psychology. And I would say that my own experience having some problem in my own life and going to a therapist helped me. It helped me to learn that what was happening to me, the bad dreams I was having, had to do with something. I won't go into stories unless we get into that if you want, but I'm still just trying to look back on how I chose psychology as a business.
maybe so if you can, if you wanted to say a few words or sentences about it, it's okay. So
Okay.
we will
All right.
we have time for our show today. So if you wanted to share it, maybe that will help some other people to recognize your story, and maybe to connect with that and also help themselves, either that they don't know how to help themselves.
I was going through a separation with somebody that I truly loved. We weren't married, but we were very close and had been together for several years. And we were breaking up, and I was struggling with that. I was struggling with my pain, and I was also struggling with anger and just all the kinds of things that people go through who are, even though we weren't married, it was like a divorce. We had to separate all of our belongings. And one of the stories about that separation is that when we got to uh, the speakers and the phonograph, he wanted the phonograph, I wanted the speakers, but you need both. So I went away with one part of the music system, and he went away with the other. So it was uh, I was just thinking back how funny that was. But the whole idea, the story was that I was struggling and I went to a therapist, and I found ways in which I came to understand why that breakup happened and what my part of it was, and how perhaps we could have conversations and communication that helped us go forward as friends. So that was the beginning of me learning to value that somebody else could sit with me and help me explore my pain, and not only explore my pain, but to go further inside where I have potential, where I have gifts, where I have strength. Like the really good, yummy parts of me, and that I wasn't a failure. Um, I wasn't going to have to go through life feeling alone and isolated. There was opportunity for me, and that idea is, I think, all because I went to that therapist, and that made me feel like, oh, this is a way to help people. Sociology is more about working in communities and doing social activism, but psychology is about going inside and finding the strength and answers from within. And that's how I first became really excited about then going to school, going back to school and learning how to be a psychologist. And I went for 8 years and went on into the university and finally got my doctorate and started my own practice.
And thank you, Dr. Doreen. Thank you for sharing that because I think that your story is that part of your story in your life. You were so young in that time, and
Yeah.
maybe it's so good because you were young, so you have much more time to think about that you experienced that in some way to discover yourself and then decide what you wanted to do in your life.
Yes.
In some way it's amazing because we can say okay it was so there are people who just go to 30s 40s and they just try to discover themselves, but sometimes we really need and have to experience, and many of business owners just like they have done something like that. They experienced something, and then in some way, business just came to their door, because they didn't they have never thinking about that they are going to do something like that. I'm thinking about your job, but also for my other previous guest speakers. It's really amazing. I love it.
Uh-huh.
I like your story.
Well, also, I believe that as an introvert, I'm an excellent listener. And I think that's one of my gifts. And I think the training I got through the years as a psychologist was how to be an even better listener, a deeper listener, a listener not only to the words, but listening behind the words. And that to me is a way in which I can tune into some things that maybe people don't even hear. And I think that that's what I bring to my work as a psychologist is deep listening.
And maybe just think about our intuition, just not to move some logical part of our brain and move
Yeah,
into that
yeah,
space to think what we think
yeah.
when we are alone and need some part of ourselves to be with ourselves and
Yes.
be in calm place just to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So then after the university and starting my private practice, my business, what happened next for me is that because I'm an introvert and I'm quieter, I realized that I was finding it easy to be in my office one-on-one, but to be in groups, I always avoided groups anyway, but to be in a group was more difficult. I found that I had, what we call public speaking anxiety, that, being even in a small group felt like, oh, I'm speaking up in front of people. Oh my gosh, I hold myself back. I have these wild kind of heartbeats that rise up into my head and feels like my head is throbbing and my throat gets tight. And I realized that I had a fear of speaking in front of groups. But as long as I was in my office, I was safe. I could listen and do what I did best. And whenever anybody asked me, well, what do you think about that, doctor? I would say, oh, where do you think that question is coming from in you? So I'd always turn it back on my client. So one day, and this is how the journey to grow a business, because I could have just had a private practice for the rest of my life, but what I realized is that there was even more. Maybe I wanted to work with groups, but if I was afraid to speak in front of people, how could I ever lead groups? How could I ever lead workshops? So I started to take that journey to what I call find my voice. And that's a whole long story, but I just wanted to say that's the beginning of how I expanded my business was to realize that I was holding myself back. As long as everybody saw me as doctor and a professional, nobody would guess that I didn't like to speak up in public.
And you uh, just um just gave me idea in terms how we as a human being sometimes separate and wanted to move forward in that business part and professionalism and all those kind of things, but also at the same time we really forget ourselves. We really, and this is, I think, what I can connect with what you do, like to connect yourself. Just we are not just only professionals and earn money and get money and also, but we forget who we are and forget about ourselves, about our health, about spirit, about why we're on this planet in some way. We have our mission, but also, and this is really it's fascinating me what you do, because I really feel that. I feel, how do you, as you wanted to say, okay, I was there, I'm doctor, but people don't know, as you can say, and I was so shy in front of camera. And
Mhm.
I spoke about it many times. Just don't want to repeat again, to do repetition about it. And I saw, okay, I'm so shy in front. I was so shy in front of camera, and then I realized that I'm much more, passionate to speak than to write. As you said, okay, I wanted to talk in front of a group of people. As many years as teaching and other things with my students, I spoke many years, but it wasn't like this. So, and I started, and I said, oh, this is good. I love that.
Mhm.
I just wanted, by the way, to share to connect with your story, how I started that. So it's,
Yeah, well, the desire to be and do more, and I think it's more the being than the doing, actually, because you, we do from a place of being who we are, and if we're not being who we are, then it feels like we stay smaller. And what you just said about yourself, in a way, acknowledging the fear and then being able to do something about that, because you have to acknowledge it first before you can change it.
yeah, and having many guest speakers, and there are speakers who were for the first time on podcast, and they break through their fear. And I was like, okay, if I help myself, I can help other people to share their
Yeah.
story. And you can see how either that English is my second language, and also, just imagine that how I can go to speak with native speakers or all those kind of things. But I started and I said, I can speak it, and this is something, this is going to be fluent, and it's fluently and more fluently. So this is yeah, and I really love what I do. I really enjoy my business and my what I really do. I really enjoy.
Yes, yeah, I do too. I enjoy mine, and that's because I feel like I'm really lined up with way more of what I, I broke through. I broke through my fear of speaking up in front of others, and that was years ago. And since then, I've been able to. For 10 years, I led a retreat on Hawaii, on an island in Hawaii called Speaking Quest, Journey to Your Authentic Self. I've been to Europe 10 times. I've been teaching in France and Holland and England and back in the United States and in Canada. So I think that what I discovered and what I learned, kind of like what you said, around what we come to um, heal inside of ourselves, we can help others who suffer the same kind of struggle.
Yeah, and you can see, we can, for our listeners, they can just see that connection. As you mentioned, okay, I'm a doctor, I'm psychologist, but also you start your business, which expanding. And what? well, you mentioned maybe, but just to what was a trigger to ex to do ex expand your business? You mentioned one, just to move in some maybe other much more um, maybe that you maybe didn't think about how it's going to be uh, in terms to move your business to the next level.
Well, I think I had a desire to lead workshops or probably use the word, use teaching, but you can't get in front of people if you're scared. Or if you're just way too nervous, then you can't, or at least I couldn't. And I would say that first, that desire to do more with my business, but also I knew that it was the desire to do more, and it was also acknowledging the pain that I had, the stage fright, the fear that I had. So I think both played a part in, if you want to call it a trigger, it feels like they both came together. I want more, but so you have to confront that. And that's what listeners, I hope, will get today is that if you want something and there's a big but, and it's stopping you, then you have to be able to not be so afraid, to be courageous to look at what's stopping you, the but, you know, because you're not gonna, if you keep having those obstacles, those roadblocks to what you want, you got to deal with the roadblocks. And I know that people say, feel the fear and do it anyway, but that wasn't possible in my case. I had to uh, work on reducing the fear, dissolving the fear, transforming the fear, learning way more about the fear, what the root was, and learn how to heal it and uh, find the strength deeper inside of myself. I call it essence, the essence of who I am, and be able to learn how to go find my essence and learn how to speak from my essence because my essence is my truth.
And when you help yourself to overcome roadblocks and all those kind of things, this is a way from your experience to help other people. As I said, for myself, I was like, okay, I was so shy in front of camera, and my partner, we were running one Facebook group, and it was like Christina, and she always said, "Why don't you pop up in the group?" But I wasn't so I'm not fond of lying, you know. And then I created a challenge, so maybe it's and from that challenge I started my recording, so do it videos solo, you know, talk about on some topics, and then try to host for entrepreneurs. And for now, it was 5 years ago. And for me, it was like, and you know, and here I am with you today.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Giving me an opportunity to speak to others out there, your listeners who have already found you and are following you and are who know and trust you that you provide your listeners with quality information that will help them. And so I guess today in thinking about business and my what I can tell your listeners about why um, like how I got into business and why it matters to me and how I use my own learning to go further and forward.
Yeah, and you shared it. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very not to say unusual because it's yeah, people doctors, you know, they have their own business and you know, but your way how you started that it's really amazing. And Dr. Doreen, when you mentioned that you traveled and in Europe and Hawaii and other countries, what do you have something which is that you was so impressed by, maybe that groups, or maybe to share with us your um your experience, or whatever you wanted to share with our, when you traveled and worked with the group of people, and how is just how it's looked like to share with us, just to be much more close, that we can understand, maybe to imagine that session with you, or who do you work with those people and speak to them and topics, or help them. And
I would say that the traveling helped me see how uh, what contributes to people's anxiety about speaking up in public, so that some cultures, even I don't know about yours, but some cultures are saying, do not ever look into the eyes of somebody else when you speak. Like that's dangerous. And in Hawaii, actually, the old tradition is when you look directly at somebody in the eye, that means it's a power struggle, and you might even fight about who's more powerful. And then I know that in Japan, you're supposed to keep your eyes lowered and you're supposed to show respect. So these cultural messages, I think, is well, we're born into a family, we're born into a society, we're born into a culture. So we take on those messages. And that's today also for your listeners. Think about what you learned as children, what you learned growing up about how to be more confident, how to be more expressed. And I think for anybody nowadays suffering or struggling with speaking up in groups or in front of others, or even just sometimes small groups, doesn't have to be like a big audience. I bet you, listeners, if you dig back down into your history, you'll be able to connect some dots between how you feel today and how you used to feel. And I have a couple of stories, but I could just tell one right now that comes to mind. The woman came to me and she talked about how when she stood in front of an audience, she felt like they were going to pounce on her. And she kept using this word pounce. And so I just noted it. I put it in my notes. And then when we started to do the exploration, the inner exploration of her life, her history, her where she came from, she remembered having to walk to school every day through a dangerous neighborhood where there were these vicious dogs. And one day, one of the vicious dogs got out. And I have to tell you, this is exactly how she said it to me. That dog pounced on me. Of course, you know, I heard already that as an adult woman, she was feeling like she was going to be pounced on. So that earlier moment or time when she had to, you know, kind of stiffen up and walk through that dangerous kind of, in a way, it was traumatic for her. And when the dog finally did attack her and she was injured, it's a memory that's been lodged in her brain. Now you ask, well, how could an event so long ago show up currently? And that's what psychology is about. She tucked that image, that memory away, but her body remembered. As soon as her body stood in front of an audience, it went, they're going to pounce on me. This feels dangerous. This feels like a threat. And the little amygdala back in the back of your brain remembers what danger felt
yeah,
like.
yeah, and this is what we live, and how we lived in our childhood. But Dr. Doreen, can can we help people to clean that memory,
Oh,
to
yeah.
work with that?
Oh, yeah. That's absolutely what my business is all about, is being able to first tap it. Well, first be able to even have the strength and the courage and the support, which I give, to gently look at the fear like we were looking at. She came to me, she said, I'm scared to speak up in public. I said, okay, well, let's discover what this is about. Let's go look and comb through your history, and we're going to find moments where you had, and you might want to just say trauma, where you had something negative happen about you being exposed in front of people. And we'll find those times. And then what I have quite a few techniques about how to heal, and that's what psychology is all about, is healing those wounds to the voice. So she was wounded, I mean, like literally wounded by the dog, but it was a wounded around her voice, be able to speak and to protect herself. And in that early time, she wasn't able to. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, my listening is like medicine to people. And so I can gently hold their hand as they go back to the scariest moments that they've ever had, or where they feel like they had um, struggle in their earlier life. And we take a new perspective. We say, oh, let's look at that little girl and let's give her some uh, kindness and some understanding, because that little girl is the one who's standing on stage as an adult, right? So we ha this is at least my point of view, we have to go back and rescue, because in a way she was just cut off, and you have to go off and on in line and grow up. But we went back and she found this. This is what we together said to the little one. You are so brave. Look at you every day going through that dangerous zone to get to school. You were so determined to get to school. School mattered so much to you that you were willing to take yourself through the hard, tough. And that kind of message, that kind of retelling of the story, you can see empowered her from the inside. I'm brave. Look at me. I'm brave. Oh, I'm going to go out in front of this audience and I'm going to be the brave one. Yeah, it may feel like they're going to pounce on me, but I am brave. So that would be an example of a whole story that comes back to an empowerment. And I could just go on for hours on the clients who have found the connection between an earlier moment or moments or situation. It isn't necessarily one moment. It's just like over and over and over and over and over. And then they finally go, oh, I get it. So we call it reframing and retelling the story in a more positive way that empowers them today.
And we have much more self-confident in that way.
Yes.
So just imagine you just trigger me to think about when we are where where we were small kids, and people say you're not worthy. This is something when you don't know, don't do that. Because we always like from our friend, our family, mother and father. There are people who in that we're not worthy to do it, like something. And there are all those kind of things. I think that you were connected with people like this because, we always need to think about that we are not worthy and we can do that like this, because someone can do it better. And this is something what's moving us step back, not just step forward. It's like a template, you must be like this, like that, and there are so people who just and were adults and they wanted to choose their, you know, university, or maybe they feel something. I example one from my neighborhood. And that lady, she's young girl, it was 19 in that time, and she said, I go to the, law university. How I can say it? It's about the law. But she said, and I said, how is going with this? And she said, I don't like exams. I don't like to learn that. And I asked her, why did you do that? Why did you go there? She said, my father wanted that.
Yeah.
And this is something her
Mm.
father wanted, that his daughter just go to that university, but she all year 12 months she didn't go to the lecturing. She did, and she stopped, and she just separated and stopped
Mm.
any kind of university and high school, just to be student, and she started working. But this is something that sometimes our mother and father, they didn't do something, and they think that their kids can do it because they didn't do that, because they didn't have an opportunity, or they didn't, and this is something that we need. I love what you do, because we need to recognize who we are and what we wanted to do from our heart.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's partly, I talked about culture but family is like a culture, and there are messages that families, parents, like you've just mentioned, give us, and whether we feel valued. And that's a very deep kind of learning about ourselves. And that's what therapy is about is finding the value, finding the truth about who we are, and growing strength. Because I have something I teach in my class around learning how to face fear, learning how to embrace it, like the little one the story I just told, and then how to replace it, face, embrace, replace. And the replace section of my workshops happens to be around the jewel. And I think that fear leads to a treasure. So if we rethink that fear is not something we want to avoid, but fear is something that will guide us to something better or something brilliant, already brilliant about ourselves. And so this idea that inside there's this jewel, and we are radiating, we're no matter where we go silently in our presence, we're already radiating. Whew. And if we think of it that way, and how to then have voice that comes from this radiance, how to line yourself up with a deep, deep truth of who you are, the heart. I loved what you just said about the heart.
Yeah, from our heart. And doctor, do you have some kind of, let's say, um, like a small workbook or checklist or something for our listeners to share? Maybe I didn't, just like, for instance, who will connect with you, but something like that they can or read it, or you know maybe they can go to your website also to find some resources, or just to connect with that, what
Yes,
you
my
do.
website I think is probably the best place because I've got freebies there, and I've also got links to my coaching program. I do one-to-one mentorship, 3-month program where people go through the whole process of healing and being able to find the confidence to be who they truly are and be able to speak in a relaxed, calm way, no matter where. So I think DoreenDowning.com is probably the best place, but I also have a guide, the 7-step guide to fearless speaking, which maybe in the notes you could, or the show notes, I can also give you a link to
Yeah,
that.
I will put all those links below
Yeah,
this
but you can also find the seven
video
step guide, the seven
podcast.
step guide on my website. So I think the website's probably the best
Yeah,
place.
and for all listeners who will come to your website and visit it, they can get whatever they want, just like to have some consultation part, or just to um, download some freebies, or connect with Dr.
Yes.
Doreen to ask
Yeah.
you some questions, just to connect with you, and you can help them in the way what they need, to.
Yes.
to resonate with themselves and to into the final instance to resolve their problem.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
And Doctor, Doreen, I know that you are a podcaster. So can you share with us about your podcast? And I know a little bit that you started when was a virus, but what what triggered you to start that? And who do you mostly talk just to talk with? Who are your speakers and your listeners and audience? Just a little bit about your podcast.
Yes, thank you. The podcast is called Find Your Voice, Change Your Life. Find your
Sounds
voice.
perfect.
Yeah, change your life. And that's true. If you are confident that you are speaking from your truth, you can change whatever you need to change, you'll speak up about it. So I've been doing the podcast for about 3, 4 years, and I've gotten now into the 160 episodes. And my listeners are people who have struggled with finding their voice and having it. And sometimes it's in a corporation because they have to look and talk a certain way, or maybe it's somebody who's starting their own business for the first time and has to get out and promote it. Or if you got a book and you want to promote your book in bookstores or book events or podcasts, you need to have a voice, and that voice, what isn't just a voice that's kind of hanging around in an air or a script. To me, your voice is really comes from within. And the podcast is simply stories from people like you. You were on it a few weeks ago, and they tell people that my guests tell stories of moments or situations where they didn't have a voice. And then they talk about the journey, what they did, whatever it was that helped free them, and then what they can do now. Like you, here you are, you have a podcast.
Yeah, and this is something, your podcast, and thank you for inviting me. And I was your guest speaker, so I really enjoyed that. And I think that your podcast is in a frame in what you do, just to that you wanted to talk to people and see how they resolve their
Yes,
how they found their voice and how they overcome
yes,
to realize who they are really. And
right. I love the way that it's not just about finding your voice, it's about realizing who you truly are. And you just spoke to that. Yes.
yeah, and also this is a way how I started my podcast because as a digital marketer and coach and speaker, and also running that business team for the web and graphic design for now 15 years. This is something what I started when people asking me how to manage it, how to get clients, how to get traffic organically, and I'm such a good I'm so good networker, to be honest. I like to network with people globally, and this is how and through that podcast you have amazing speakers, so you need and I really learn because knowing you, we met online, and this is something, and every single day you learn from taking action when you interact with people, and you really
Mhm.
learn from their experience, from their stories, and sometimes you learn when you have never think I have never thought about that I'm going to talk in that way, how I'm talking now, to speak to people and move in some other areas of life, not just digital marketing, speak the word about business, international level, move forward, helping people to uh, talk about and build their personal brand through that, but this is life. This is what we do. But at the end of the day, we're only human beings. And however, when we get up and go to the bed, we're human beings. So everything is in that level. I mean, so, and I really, and because, and only not just because of that, I really love what you do because to find out and help people to realize who they are.
There you go again. Realize who they truly are.
Yes, of course. So, Dr. Doreen, it has been such a pleasure talking to you today. So you mentioned once, but do you have some kind of message for our audience? And I'm a big believer that we will connect again. So in our new
Mhm.
coming episodes. But for if someone wanted to, if someone is in stuck or struggle with their own self to start business or to resolve something, they have final message to encourage our audience to move forward. And
Well, I think the biggest message is something about what I said earlier about what you want, and there's a way forward to what you want, and yet there's something you hesitate or you feel like you are blocked or you don't believe in yourself or whatever is stopping you from going to what you want. The quote I always like to say is, uh, what is in the way is the way. What is in the way is the way.
Dr. Doreen, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your story today and what you shared, and I really learned from you. And thank you again. It's such a pleasure, huge, big pleasure for myself. I'm so honored to have you as my special guest speaker today.
Oh, I really appreciate the opportunity to share my stories and to have you be such a good listener. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and have a lovely day. And bye for now.
Bye bye.